Hey guys, Sue's here, back with another keto dinner recipes video. If you're new here, we film these every single week to give you a little motivation, inspiration to get in the kitchen and get your keto cooking and low carb meal prep on. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, join the crew so you never miss one of our weekly videos, and let's go ahead and get into it. First up this week, we're trying out Flav City's roasted chicken salad on cloud bread. I'm not much for fancy chicken salad. I like that regular southern just awesomeness, but I wanted to try this recipe out. So to start with, on a baking sheet, I have 4 chicken thighs with the skin on, bone in, and 2 really large chicken breasts. This recipe called for 10 chicken thighs. I opted to do this instead as I don't really like dark meat, but you need the flavor of that for chicken salad, right? So I'm just putting some salt and pepper on both sides of it, drizzling it all with olive oil, and then I'm just gonna kind of rub my chicken around in this to make sure the bottom of it is covered in olive oil as well. I'm going to pop this into a 400-degree oven and let it roast for 1 hour. Also, while that's in the oven, we're going to get some bacon going. The recipe called for just 2 slices of thick cut bacon. I have thin cut bacon here, so I'm going to do 3 and an extra one to eat while I cook. Popping this in the same oven on the bottom for 15 minutes. And here's our chicken when it comes out. We're going to go ahead and let that cool down and get started on our dressing for the chicken salad. So for that, I am adding a cup of avocado oil mayo. I think this is the Chosen Food one. I'm adding just 1/4 of a cup of lemon juice. It called for whole lemon, but I'm using concentrate. Teaspoon of soy sauce, 1/2 teaspoon toasted sesame oil, teaspoon of Dijon mustard, and I'm changing it up a little here. Instead of using sriracha, I'm using this chili garlic sauce because it doesn't have added sugar. Putting a teaspoon of that, along with a teaspoon of tahini paste. And you could leave that out if you wanted. I'm adding 1/4 of a teaspoon sea salt, 1/4 of a teaspoon ground black pepper. I'm just gonna mix this a little with my spoon before I go ahead and get in there with a whisk and really get this all incorporated. And once we have that mixed up, we're just gonna stick that to the side, let those flavors get in there nice and blended. Over to our stand mixer, I just took my chicken, just pulled it apart in big chunks and stuck it in there. Have the paddle mixer attachment on, and we're gonna use that to shred it up. I did remove just the skin off of the top of the chicken thighs, and then I left the little bit of it that was on the bottom because I like that flavor, but you don't want those hard crunchy pieces in there, so we just took those off and ate them. Using my spatula to make sure it's all shredded, I'm just gonna pour that dressing we made right on top. And in their recipe, they do add like extra lemon juice and salt and stuff to the chicken after they blend it, but I opted not to do that because I didn't want an overwhelmingly lemon taste, because like I said, I'm not a fancy chicken salad person. I just wanted to follow this recipe to check it out and see what I thought. Now to that, I'm adding 1/2 cup of chopped up celery along with 3 tablespoons of chopped parsley. This is Italian parsley. And we're taking that bacon that we cooked, I just crumbled it up, and we're going to add that to the bowl as well, along with 1/4 cup of green onions that are chopped up, and I just used the green parts. About 1/4 of a cup of walnuts. You can use pecans or walnuts, but we have a pecan and peanut allergy. Our 2-year-old is allergic to both of those, so we don't keep either one of those in the house ever. Using the mixer to blend that end as well, and this is what it looks like. And you do want to taste this and see if it needs any adjusting on the seasoning. I did think that it needed a little bit more salt, so I went ahead and added some sea salt, and then I also added a nice amount of ground black pepper to it and just used my spatula to go ahead and mix that all in. I started on the cloud bread, and for that I took 6 eggs and separated them out, and for this we put the egg yolks in one dish and the egg whites in another. And the key to making these stiff is to add this 1/4 of a teaspoon of cream of tartar. That's always just like a magic ingredient. And we're going to beat these with a hand mixer until they have nice, stiff, firm peaks, just like if you're making a meringue. The key to this is you want to make sure there's no residue at all, no oil, anything like that on your bowl that you're beating the egg whites in. If you get eggshell or something in it, you want to make sure you don't stick your fingers in there to pull it out or anything like that, because it can really cause your egg whites not to stiffen up. We're just going to do this. I'd say it probably took me like 5 to 7 minutes, and you just pick it up and check it, and it's not quite where we want it. So we're just going to blend it a little more, and then you can see once it holds that fine tip on the peaks, it's ready. We're going to stick that to the side, get started on our egg yolks. So for these, I'm adding to it 3 ounces of softened cream cheese. cheese. And we're just gonna blend this together until it's all nice and creamy and smooth. And it's okay if you still have some flecks of cream cheese floating around in there when you get done, but just get it as smooth as you can. Now we're gonna take half of our egg white mixture and we're gonna fold this into our egg yolks. And it's very important here to make sure you are folding and not stirring, because we want to make sure we keep all of these air bubbles and keep this nice and fluffy. So after you've gotten the first half incorporated pretty well, you're gonna go ahead and add the second half. And you're gonna fold that in too until it gets nice and creamy in this kind of consistency. Now to bake these, I'm taking 2 half-sheet pans, lining them with parchment, and the serving size on this is supposed to be 8. I was able to squeeze 10 out of it, but to start with I was aiming for 8. So this first one I just did 4, and I used a 1/2 cup measuring cup to portion this out, and it just naturally kind of goes into the shape. Then I did another sheet and I was able to eke out 2 extra ones. So I have 6 on this one, and I'm just topping each of them with a little bit of just cheap grated Parmesan cheese, just like a pinch over each of them, as well as a little sprinkle of dried oregano onto each. And I did the same thing for the other 4 as well. And I'm gonna pop these into a 300-degree oven for 30 minutes. Gonna put them on the middle and the lower rack in the oven. And then halfway through, I will just rotate the pans to make sure they are all evenly cooked. And here's what they look like when they come out. Cloud bread is always so beautiful, but it doesn't store that well, I don't find. It tastes good enough the next day after it's been in the refrigerator, but it's always the best the night of. And here it is plated up. Just portion some of my chicken salad on there and cut it in half. This is a great low-carb meal, perfect for keto lunches throughout the week. But the cloud bread, I would say, is better if you store it in the freezer after you cook it and then heat it back up in the oven rather than just store it in the fridge in a zip bag. It gets a little soggy, but still good enough. Next up, we have this easy cheeseburger soup. Very delicious. So to start with, in a large Dutch oven that my aunt actually gave me. Thank you for that. I love it. I have some bacon that we're adding. Now this recipe called for 4 slices of chopped up bacon. I did 6 because again, I'm using thin cut, and I just diced that up, and we're gonna cook it over medium heat until it gets nice and crispy. Once it does, we're gonna scoop this out to a paper towel lined plate, and I'm gonna go ahead and scoop out as much of the bacon grease with that as I can. It's gonna all drain onto this plate, but we want to remove as much of it as we can from our Dutch oven. You don't have to use that. You could use a regular pot. And you can see the bottom of this enamel has got this coating on it, but no worries. It's all gonna it's gonna deglaze when we start making the soup. So to that, I'm also adding a couple tablespoons of unsalted butter. Once that gets nice and melted, I'm adding a pound of ground beef and using my meat chopper upper. I always have that linked in the description box. I love it. Makes my life so much easier. I am just breaking that apart. Once it's all browned, I'm adding 4 ounces of softened cream cheese, stirring that in, and to that adding 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, as well as a tablespoon of just regular yellow mustard, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon smoked paprika, 1/4 teaspoon sea salt, and 1/4 teaspoon ground black pepper, and just mixing that together. And you can see I'm scraping the bottom of the pot as I do that, and then all of that stuff's coming right up. You don't want any burned bits in your soup later on. To that, I'm adding 2 cups of beef broth. I always use low sodium, and I'm also adding a 1/4 cup heavy whipping cream. And I'm gonna just mix this in and bring this up to a low simmer. And once that comes up to a simmer, I'm adding about 3/4 cup of sharp shredded cheddar cheese, stirring that in, and then I'm just gonna let this simmer probably about 10 minutes until our cheese is all fully melted and everything is nice and smooth. Then I'm gonna add our bacon back in, and I'm just gonna stir this in and then actually turn the burner off and remove the soup from the burner so it can go ahead and cool down a little bit and thicken up some before we plate it up. And here it is topped with some kosher pickle. My husband's a big pickle fan, and it complements the taste of the cheeseburger soup well. I don't like traditional dill pickles, so I didn't have any on mine. This was a great recipe, so super quick and easy. I highly recommend it, and it is also kid friendly, stores and reheats beautifully, and I'll definitely be making this one again. Next up, we made this crustless broccoli quiche from Once Upon a Chef. So to start with, in a large skillet over medium heat, I am just adding 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Once that starts foaming up and is almost all the way melted, we're gonna add a 1/2 cup of chopped shallots. Now, if you can't get your hands on shallots, and remember, onions are higher carb and shallots are even higher carb, but for this recipe, it still works out to about 6 net carbs per serving, and the quiche makes 6 servings. So I went ahead for the shallots because they just add a level of flavor to any recipe that regular onions just don't quite get there, in my opinion. So we're just gonna stir these around and cook them until they start to soften, but we wanna make sure that they don't get brown. We're not going for that. And once they do, we're gonna add 10 ounces of broccoli florets. Now I just used frozen ones, thawed them, we chopped them up into little 1-inch pieces, and we're just gonna add these in there, giving them a little bit of a stir before I just add a 1/4 teaspoon salt and a 1/3 cup water to that. I'm gonna mix this in and continue to let this cook until our broccoli is done, but still firm in texture and some of the water kind of evaporates out. And while that's going, we're gonna prep our pie pan. Now it calls for a 9-inch deep dish. This is only 8 1/4, so our quiche is gonna be a little bit taller. Works just as well, just use what you got, especially if you're not making it for company, you're just making it for yourself. It really doesn't matter how it comes out, how it looks. It's all about how it tastes, right? So I'm just greasing that with some butter, and to a medium-sized mixing bowl, I have 6 large eggs. I'm adding 1 3/4 cup heavy cream to that, some ground nutmeg, an 1/8 teaspoon cayenne pepper about, and then I wanted an extra dash of that because I like it to be a little bit more spicy. Also adding 3/4 teaspoon sea salt to that, getting our whisk in there and getting this all mixed up. Now getting our pie dish, we are using a slotted spoon to put the broccoli and shallot mixture into the bottom of that. You can see I'm leaving all the excess liquid as well as excess shallots in the pan. And we're gonna top this with some cheese. Now the recipe calls for 1.5 cups, about 5 ounces of shredded Gruyere, but we're not gonna use that because it's expensive to buy just a block of that and shred it. You can use whatever type of cheese you want. I think regular Swiss cheese would be great. I was able to find a blend. It's pre-shredded. Of course, that adds a couple extra carbs to the dish, but I'm okay with that for the convenience and the price of it. And we're just gonna add 1.5 cups of that on top of our broccoli shallot mixture, and then I'm gonna pour our egg mixture over the top of that. We're gonna put this whole thing into a 325-degree oven and let it bake for 1 hour. And here's what it looks like when it comes out, nice and golden brown on top. You want it set, but more like a custard texture. And here's a slice of it plated up. I did top it with a little pinch of chives. This was absolutely delicious, perfect for keto brunch / keto lunch. Last up this week, we have this awesome zucchini walnut salad from the Diet Doctor. So to start with, we're gonna make our dressing for that by adding 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 3/4 cup of avocado oil mayo to a mixing bowl, along with 2 teaspoons lemon juice, a teaspoon of minced garlic, 1/2 teaspoon sea salt, and 1/4 teaspoon chili powder. We're just gonna mix this together a little bit with our spoon before we really get in there with our whisk, and again, mix it until it's nice and smooth. Now, you always wanna season things to taste, and after I got this mixed together, I tasted it, and it tasted too much like mayo, and I don't like mayo-based dressings that much, so I added about another 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder to this to just give it a little bit more kick, but you season yours and make it how you prefer. Now, after we have that mixed together, we're gonna stick it to the side. And I have here 2 medium zucchini that we just sliced in half, scooped the insides out, and then cut up into little half moons. We're gonna saute these over on the stove. So got a large saute pan going over medium heat, and added a tablespoon of olive oil, extra virgin olive oil to that. And we're just gonna add our zucchini, sprinkle it with a little sea salt, little ground black pepper, and I'm just gonna saute this until it gets slightly browned, but still firm. Just a few minutes. And we are making enough of this for 4 servings. So then we're just gonna remove that with a slotted spoon over to a separate dish. To the same pan with the oil in it, we're gonna add a couple handfuls of chopped walnuts, about 3 to 4 ounces. I'm just gonna mix these in. We're gonna roast these just for a couple minutes. So after I get them coated with the olive oil, I am just going to sprinkle them with some sea salt and a little bit of ground black pepper. And we're just gonna continue roasting those for a moment, and then remove them to a little separate prep dish as well. Now, getting started on the actual salad, we have a mix here of about 3 to 4 ounces of chopped arugula, along with a head of chopped romaine lettuce. Again, this is enough for 4 servings. Also have a 1/4 cup chopped green onions. To prepare our salad, just getting my salad dish, just putting a nice handful of those greens in there, a 1/4 of our sauteed zucchini. On top of that, the recipe doesn't call for adding meat, but I wanted to add some extra protein, so I am adding a few ounces of chopped roasted deli turkey. You could use grilled chicken. You could leave the meat out altogether, whatever you prefer. Drizzling some of our homemade dressing over the top of that. A little handful of those roasted walnuts, along with a little bit of green onion. And there you go. There is your low-carb zucchini and walnut salad. This was excellent. I hope you like this salad, Sylvia. That was one of her special requests. We'll be sprinkling some more salads into upcoming videos. Get your request coming soon, Joe. And special shout out to William and Evelyn. I've responded back to you twice on your emails, but I don't think that you realize I'm responding to you. So make sure you check all of your email folders. Don't want you to think I'm ignoring you. For all the rest of you, thanks so much for making it this far and watching our video. Comment down below any video requests that you would like to see from us as we're planning new and expanded content as we get to the end of the year and into the new year. And like this video, share it with your friends. Until next time, bye guys.